Welcome back. If you watched my first video, you saw me buying and gathering all the supplies I needed to make this corset. Now that I've got them all, it's time to actually make the thing. I've decided not to cut out my pattern pieces, rather I'm going to trace them. I'm just using standard gift wrap tissue paper to do this, nothing fancy. But it'll do the trick, and that way I'll have my pattern saved if I ever need to refer back to the original, which I might, since this is all a very new process for me. So let's get started. It's at this point that I've realized I traced out the wrong size on the first piece. Oy, this is not a good start to this project. But at least I realized it before I started cutting out my fabric, so I'll just have to go back and retrace that first piece and we'll go from there. Alright, so here is my first mock-up. I have chosen to do it in kind of craft butcher's paper type stuff. On the whole, I'm actually quite happy with it. I don't know. I have a feeling this might be sitting a little too high up on me actually. Yeah, I think I will do the next mock-up in fabric. I'm pretty happy with how this paper one turned out. Alright, well, it's all laid out, pinned out, and now cut out. So bad news. Turns out my sewing machine is broken. I've just taken it in for repairs, but unfortunately, with everything going on in the world, it is a 3 to 4 week wait. So, yeah. Now there's nothing left to do really until the sewing machine is repaired, and yeah, this corset project is gonna end up taking me a lot longer than I anticipated, mostly with having to wait. Yay! So good news, just picked up my sewing machine. The machine is ready to go, which means there's no more putting it off. However, there is one slight difficulty in getting started on sewing my project. So the one difficulty is I still have a 2,000 piece puzzle on my table that I haven't quite finished. So, guess I better get working on it. the corset. And I lined it up right. It worked. All right, one seam down, too many to go. Okay, so I've ironed my seam now and I've pinned the busk in place. So now I need to sew it along the edge. The instructions say to use a zipper foot, but of course my sewing machine doesn't have one. So I guess I'm just gonna have to be extra careful. So instead of a zipper foot, what I'm doing is I'm just adjusting my stitch so that my straight stitch will be to one side instead of dead center, and hopefully by doing that I'll be able to get close enough to my busk without breaking a needle. So that's the first half of the busk encased. The stitching isn't perfect, but close enough. If you're wondering why I'm using blue thread, it's because this is literally the first mock-up, probably of many, and I'm just using up some stash threads from old projects. Okay, so I've marked where I need to make my holes. Now the scary bit. Using this, essentially a weapon, an awl. So this is actually a fairly new sewing tool for me. I only recently got this. And yeah, poking holes in fabric, kind of terrifying. Oh well, needs to be done, so here goes. And we've got a corset front. Just need to stitch this one in place, obviously, and there's actual progress being made. I'm so excited. So my camera battery died, but I did keep sewing for a little bit. So in addition to finishing off the two center front pieces, I also did the two center back. So these are just temporary grommeting strips that I cut down the center, so they're a little frayed there, but they're literally just there for me to try on the mock-up without having to waste any grommets. So I'm not really too worried about that. They just have to last for one try on, so that's good. So that's where we're at. So, classic. I sewed that whole seam and didn't realize I was out of bobbin thread. Oops. Guess I'm winding a bobbin. Okay, let's get this corset finished for its first try on. Let's give this a try. So I've never put on a corset before or laced a corset. So we'll see how this goes. I know I'm going to need to do alterations. Okay, well, laced in as well as we can. I think through the bust. I feel like through the bust the fit is pretty good. Definitely got too much down here. I'm definitely going to need to pinch in. Now, I did add some to the waist because my waist was considerably bigger than the pattern called for, so I'm thinking I might need to take some of that back out. Yeah, I'm actually quite happy with how the back is fitting. I think that's pretty good. I feel like some of this I'm just going to be trimming away to make this line match up with this more. But yeah, I definitely feel like pinch out some down here, sort of taper it in a bit. But on the whole, I quite I think it turned out pretty good on the whole. Yeah, I'm happy with this. For a first mock-up, I think this is pretty good. Make a few alterations around the waist. And then I think mock-up number 2, I might actually do all the boning channels and put in my friendly zip ties. Thank you, Morgan Donner, for that suggestion. Yeah, they worked really well in the back there. So I think I'll do that for my second mock-up, and yeah, we'll go from there. So, yeah, mock-up number 1. So we're done mock-up number 2. And this time I actually did boning using heavy-duty zip ties. So I haven't actually trimmed the zip ties, so they are sticking out at the bottom, and the knobbly bits are at the top. And yeah, those they hurt a little bit on the upper arms, but it's actually just that zip tie part that's hurting. So I think the actual height of the corset, I think, is fine, and of course the corset boning won't be right up to that top edge anyways, so I'm not actually worried about that. I did shorten the front of this corset. I had already previously shortened the 2 back pieces before I did mock-up number 1 because I knew I was going to need those shorter based off of that paper mock-up that I did. I actually ended up putting some of that length back in. I decided that I'd actually taken off too much. So I actually put about an inch back in. And then I've taken, based off of mock-up number 1, I took off some length in the rest of the corset pieces. I am short-waisted, so I more or less expected that that would be a thing. I figured I would have to shorten the pattern. Yeah, the joys of being short-waisted. So I took off between about 1.5 inches to 1 inch, sort of around, just graduating, the most right at the front and then a little less on the sides until it met up with the length in the back. And it's done pretty good. There's still a little bit of a jog right where the 2 back pieces meet with the side, but not too bad of one. I think that'll be easy enough to sort of trim off and smooth out that line a little bit. Not something I'm worried about. on the whole, I'm actually really happy with how this is fitting now. I also, based off of some comments in a Facebook group that I belong to, I did take a little bit of width out as well into the side pieces. I took about an inch and then half an inch in 2 pieces. So one piece I took an inch out, one piece I took half an inch out. So in total, that was a reduction of about 3 inches of width. I did add width to the pattern because my waist measurement was actually several pattern sizes larger than either my bust or my hip measurement was. So I had actually put some width into the pattern to accommodate that. And I'm really bad at math. So obviously I put a little too much in. So I did take some of that out so that I would have a lacing gap. You probably noticed there wasn't really a lacing gap left on mock-up number 1, but that's why we do mock-ups. So this time I do have a much better lacing gap. It's not entirely even because I am lacing myself into this, and well, that's hard to do. So I'm not actually that worried about the fact that it's not perfectly straight. The fit is good though. It actually fits nice and it's quite comfortable. I am thinking, for the boning channels that I did, I followed the pattern recommendations for boning channels, and it does say that you can bone less or you can bone more depending on how much boning you want and depending on how much boning and support you need. Obviously somebody with a much slender figure probably wouldn't need quite as much boning as somebody with a bit of a larger figure such as myself. I am thinking, I haven't decided yet, but I am thinking of putting in a boning channel right here. It feels just like it's pulling a little bit right through here, that it's not getting quite as much compression and smoothness. I feel like there's a bit of a tummy bump happening there, so smooth that out. But other than that, I think I quite like this. I'm not sure I'd actually want to add boning anywhere else. But yeah, done. Mock-up number 2, done and dusted, and yeah, I am quite happy. I think I might just go back, and rather than taking this one apart, I might just add in that additional boning channel along here and just see what I think of it with that in. So I've been wearing mock-up number 2 for a little bit now, and after wearing it and after trimming the zip ties actually so they weren't sticking out at the bottoms, I have decided that it is still too long in the front. So I have roughly drawn in on one side how much I figure it needs to be shortened. I will be shortening it, of course, in the mid section, not at the bottom hem. But just so that I have a way to measure how much I want to take it up by in each particular piece. So I will be doing that for mock-up number 3. I also have decided that I do in fact want that extra strip of boning down the front here. I've got a gut. Simply put, and unfortunately I carry it all in the front, so yeah, I'm gonna have a rounded tummy irregardless of whether I'm wearing a corset or not. I have made peace with that, but I do feel that it would make a slightly nicer front in terms of just smoothness, just to have one more additional boning up along here. So I just sort of roughly sketched it in on myself using a pencil. Yeah, I liked this additional boning here, but yeah, I do think I need one more. So doing that. And I do like that pinch out that I took in the back. So in the very back here, I just sewed in a quick little dart just to see whether I liked that just being tucked in a little bit. I don't think I'm ever going to have a classic straight 2-inch space down my center back. It's just not how my body is built. I think it will always be a bit more of a V with it tighter down at the bottom than it is up at the top. And again, I'm okay with that. I've made my peace with that. So yeah, so now it's just a case of taking mock-up number 3 apart and getting started on, or pardon me, mock-up number 2. Take mock-up number 2 apart and make my changes to the pattern pieces and start on mock-up number 3. Okay, on to the next step of transferring these changes onto the pattern for mock-up number 3. Hopefully my math works out a little bit better this time. Ugh, I hate math. I am so bad with math. Definitely need some T reinforcement. Okay, let's get started again. Mock-up number 3 is done. I had a minor disaster right at the beginning when I was shortening the 3 front pieces. I somehow completely messed up on the math. Math is hard. And somehow ended up not shortening them, even though I thought I had shortened them. It was very confusing. I have no idea how I did it other than the fact that I'm supremely talented. And I'm just glad I discovered the error the moment I went to insert the bust and realized there was way more material at the bottom than there should have been. Yeah, that was fun. So needless to say, had to recut those pieces. And yeah, did I mention math is hard? Yeah, it is. Moving on. Mock-up number 3. So this is the first mock-up where I have actually done the lining that is called for in the pattern that I'm using, and have actually sewn the proper boning channels, not using twill tape to make temporary channels like I did in mock-up number 2.
This one I actually did take the time to put the proper lining in and do the proper boning channels. I did add the boning channels here in the front that I talked about wanting to add, and I did do that. I have already, having only just tried this on moments ago, I've already decided that I do want to tweak this a little bit. I'm happy having the 2 channels here. I'm really glad to do that. I had done the standard, what was it, 3/8, I think. I forget the exact measurement. I think it was a 3/8 boning channel, which will be fine for my smaller boning, but I actually think I want to do both of these boning channels at the 1/2 inch so that I can use my slightly wider boning in both the channels. The second channel here, I did do it at the 1/2 inch, which is why there are 2 of my handy dandy zip ties side by side in those ones. But I think I actually want to do that in both of the channels. So these channels will extend just a little bit further. And there are 1 or 2 other spots where I did do the slightly thinner boning channel that I think I actually do want to go up to the 1/2 inch and use the wider boning that I've got. But other than that, I'm actually really happy with this one. I think the length, after the previously mentioned disaster, the length is good. I have tested it out sitting on a chair, and I can indeed sit on a chair without it digging into my thighs, which was the goal. So that is good. I can sit comfortably. I have tried bending and moving, and other than the fact that I am not a flexible person, yeah, I can definitely move in this corset. It is comfortable. It's not feeling like it's pinching me in any way, shape, or form. Is it perfect? No. But then neither is my body. So there are definitely some issues, and a lot of those do come down to the fact that I am short-waisted, I am not a squishy person, and I have a sway back, which is why, yes, my lacing is not perfectly even from top to bottom. That has been an issue on every single mock-up I've done so far. It is always more narrowly laced at the very bottom. I have tried taking width out of the bottom. It doesn't seem to make a difference. It always seems to end up that way, and I think it's just the way my body is shaped, that for it to fit me everywhere else, that is how it's going to be laced over the hip area. My hips are simply not as big as the belly. And that combined with my sway back, I will never have the perfect straight line across here. It will always angle up slightly. And again, that is just the way my body is shaped. That is the way my body works. And I've decided I don't care. It is comfortable. I never expected this corset to cinch me in. I wasn't really trying for that. I wasn't really looking for reduction. I was looking for something that would smooth out the silhouette. And I always figured I would end up having to, for getting proper hourglass hip silhouette, I always figured I'd have to do padding because I just don't really have hips. I've never had hips. That's not the way my body is shaped. Even without a belly, I just don't have hips. So again, you know, that's reality. That is who I am. So other than wanting to change out a couple of the boning channels for the wider boning, other than that, I think this is it. I actually think I'm happy with how this one turned out. I'm happy with the fit of it. I'm happy with the shape of it. I think this might be it. I might actually be ready to start the real one. So, that being said, mock-up number 3. I think I'm ready for a pot of tea.
So I realize now that I actually didn't film much of the process of making the final corset. I was just kind of done and wanted to get it finished. I did film putting in the grommets, as well as I did film doing the final flossing details. So enjoy.
Ta-da! And it's done. I had meant to film more of the process of making this final version, but truth be told, it's taken me 3 months. I did 3 mock-ups back to back, and I was just, I just wanted it done. So I have to admit, I didn't really film all that much. But yeah, it is, here it is. The finished corset. Is it perfect? Not even close. There are a lot of things that I could have done differently. I am, for the most part, very happy with how it turned out. Is it perfect? Not even close. Do I care? Not even slightly. I'm delighted with it. It's comfortable, it fits me. It's going to do what I need it to do in terms of giving me the general silhouette I need so that I can then continue on with my projects. But yeah, it's taken me a long time. I filmed the first bit of these videos back in November of 2020. It's now, what is it, March the 6th. So it has been a little over 3 months if you include ordering supplies. Closer to 3 months if you just think in terms of physically working on making. But still, long process. And I'm so happy it's done. I have to admit, when I was making this 4th final version, I was over it. I was so over making corsets. I made the 3 mock-ups, and I needed those mock-ups obviously because I did need to make a fairly substantial adjustments to the pattern to make it work for me. Mostly because I am so short-waisted. I had to shorten the pattern pieces significantly. Added to that the fact that, yes, my proportions do not match the proportions of the pattern, so I had to widen it and narrow it and do all sorts of other width adjustments as well. So I did need to do all those mock-ups, but it was a lot. It was a lot of work and sewing and repetitiveness. So yeah, by the time I reached this final version, I was kind of done. I was kind of over the whole corset making thing, and yeah, I was ready to move on to other pastures, to other projects. So I'm very happy that it's done. I'm happy that I didn't get so fed up with it that I didn't bother doing the finishing details I wanted to do in terms of floss and lace and all of that. I'm glad I stuck with it and did that, and I actually enjoyed that part. I've always enjoyed embellishing. It's always been one of my favorite parts of sewing projects, is doing the final embellishments. So I was very happy with getting to that stage in this final corset to be able to do the lace at the top, which was very finicky because it's actually 2 different laces layered on top of each other. And then the flossing, which I actually have done flossing along the top as well, less decorative than what I did at the bottom because obviously you're not really seeing it because of the lace covering it. But I did do some flossing up top as well as the more decorative flossing along the bottom. And yeah, so now it's just really just wearing it for a little bit, kind of breaking it in, getting it so that it wants to curve to my body. Rather than the circular curving of the coil it was on for the boning. And yeah, I guess I've got 1 or 2 more things I need to make. You know, a chemise, drawers, petticoat, corset cover. Yeah, 1 or 2 more things I need to make before I can actually start in on making the outfit. So yeah, I guess that'll be up next. I've already pre-washed my linen for my chemise and drawers, and that will be the next project. Bye!